All right, so let's talk about the positional breakdown. And what we're doing here is we're going to look at the position groups from last year and this year. And what I did was I did not look at the playoffs or late season, anything like that. I actually looked at the week one roster, what we were looking at, and comparing that to what we have now, and basically deciding if we got better, we got worse, or if we stayed the same in those positions. So let's go ahead and hop into it. And we'll start with the quarterback position. In 2020, the Rams entered the season with Jared Goff and John Wolford at quarterback. And now we know that this season we are entering week one with Matthew Stafford at quarterback, and John Wolford will still be the backup. We do have some other options there. Of course, Duck Hodges is on the roster. Bryce Perkins is in town. But really, the Wolf, seems to be the guy that will be the backup to Matthew Stafford. The verdict on this one, improvement. I'm going to say this is an upgrade. It's simple. I mean, Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. By how much, we will see. We will wait and see that. But I don't think it's an extreme comment at all to say that Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. And some of the comments that we're hearing from Sean McVay kind of just nail that in a little bit more and get me excited, honestly, because Sean McVay, he's out here hyping Matthew Stafford. And as Rams fans, we got to be excited about that. That's good stuff. Next up, running back. The Rams entered the 2020 season in week one with Malcolm Brown, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, and Xavier Jones. This season, the Rams enter week one with Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, Jake Funk, Xavier Jones, Raymond Calais, who was also there as well, but was more of a practice squad guy. And now, of course, we know that the Rams did just sign Otis Anderson Jr. So, pretty loaded group, actually. Malcolm Brown is a departure for sure. That is that he is now a Tennessee Titan, and the Rams will feel that one. But ultimately, I'm going to go my verdict on this one. I'm going equal. So losing Brown, I think that will be made up by all of the guys from last year, which is Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, Xavier Jones, Raymond Calais. They all now have one extra year of experience and a pandemic season too. So it's like that learning curve. I don't even know what that was like. I would love to ask that question to some of these players. Like, what was that like compared to some of the other previous years and all that? But I think with all of these guys having an extra year under their belt, I think that can make up for the Malcolm Brown departure. So I think that group does stay the same, though, because Malcolm Brown was a pretty talented running back, definitely underrated, and I think he's going to do a good job backing up Derrick Henry out there for Tennessee. We'll go to the wide receivers now. In 2020, the Rams entered week one with Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds, and Simba Webster. This season, the Rams have Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, Simba Webster, and then some other guys on the roster as well that I believe would be more of probably practice squad guys, all right? But we got Tristan Jackson, Jeremiah Hadel, Landon Akers, and Ben Skoranek. Ben Skoranek was a draft pick. For this one, on my verdict here, I'm going to go ahead and say that this position is an improvement. The Rams wide receiver group seemed to have gained speed. So, of course, adding speed at the wide receiver spot is never a bad thing, especially when Sean McVay is the one calling your offense. So the Rams lose a guy in Josh Reynolds, who, in my opinion, I loved Reynolds. I'm a big Texas A&M guy, so I was stoked that Reynolds was here. But as far as contributions on the field, pretty average. So I think we replaced that average production on the field with speed, and I think that that's an improvement. Next up, we'll go to tight end. In 2020, the Rams entered week one with Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, Bryson Hopkins, and Johnny Munt. Really not a whole lot of changes here in 2021. We're going, of course, Gerald Everett's now gone, but with the Seahawks. But now we enter week one with Tyler Higbee, Jacob Harris, Bryson Hopkins, Johnny Munt, and also Kendall Blanton is still around. So I do anticipate that Bryson Hopkins and Johnny Munt have a real shot at this roster, but keeping 4 tight ends would be gnarly. So I don't know if that'll be a pretty good battle between them. Bryson Hopkins, of course, coming in last year. Coaching staff is really high on him, but Munt is a very good blocker as well and actually had some pretty solid plays last year when he was called on. Gerald Everett, like I said, is a Seahawk, and Jacob Harris is also getting a lot of praise right now. So I think that he will, A, make the team, and B, I think contribute as the season goes on. I look for Jacob Harris to start really being in the offense, probably like week 11, 12, a little bit later in the season. But ultimately, I'm going to go with the verdict here. I'm going to go equal. Gerald Everett was a fun player to watch. He can have average hands, but was very difficult to tackle. Took like 4 or 5 dudes to take him down every time. Harris might be the real deal. But until we know for sure, I'm going to say that this is equal because I like Harris, but I also like, I like what Johnny Munt brought last year, honestly. There was like a couple of late season games where it was like, okay, Johnny, all right. So, yeah, I think that I would say we're about the same there. And for offensive line, we're going to break it down by position as well. So for left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, 2021, is also going to be Andrew Whitworth, so same guy there. Verdict, hopefully equal. So Father Time is undefeated, and it's only a matter of time until Big Whit starts to feel those effects. And with the extra regular season game, is this the year? I mean, I hope not, but I would love to send off Big Whit into the sunset with a big old ring on his finger. That would be awesome. Left guard, 2021 week 1 starter was Joe Noteboom. I do anticipate that Joe Noteboom would likely be the starter heading into 2021, but I've got some other names here for you, such as Austin Corbett, Jamil Demby, David Edwards, Bobby Evans, Coleman Shelton, Max Percher from Italy, and Jordan Meredith. Verdict, likely equal. No reason to think this position gets worse, especially with our depth. And the Rams have good depth along the offensive line and versatility along the offensive line. So these guys can play in multiple spots. But it stands to reason that Boom. Do we call him Boom? I started that. Did I start? I mean, I don't want to say I started that, but I just randomly started. I started it with myself calling Noteboom just Boom. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe it's not. I don't care. Next year, we'll go to the center position. In 2020, the Rams entered the season with Austin Blythe at center, and in 2021, it will likely be Austin Corbett, but Coleman Shelton and Brian Allen are also on the depth chart at the center spot. The verdict here, I'm going to say downgrade. And it's not because I don't like Austin Corbett, Coleman Shelton, and Brian Allen. It's because I really like Austin Blythe. He's a very good center. So I don't think it'll be a huge fall off. I don't think it'll be like where it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh man, our offensive line is chaos now because it was Blythe running the whole thing and he was the anchor. Very, very good player now with the Kansas City Chiefs, but ultimately I think that we're going to be okay here, but it is a downgrade. Austin Blythe was an awesome player. Austin Corbett, I think, can handle that. Coleman Shelton, I expect to back him up. Brian Allen, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I do think is a potential cut because he is so low on that depth chart at center, and he doesn't have the versatility that some of the other guys have. He is a center, not an interior offensive lineman. We haven't seen him play at any other spots, just center. At right guard, Austin Corbett started in 2020, but of course we got the same names that we just had. Noteboom, Corbett, Demby, Edwards, Evans, Shelton, Percher, Meredith. Likely equal again. I think that Corbett was... I think Corbett is the clear starter at center with Blythe leaving. But we have plenty of guys that can play in this spot and do fine. Like we saw Bobby Evans there in the playoffs. We saw... I think we've seen Edwards there. I think Coleman Shelton would do a good job. I'm really excited to see like Percher and Meredith and these guys in preseason, see what they do. Percher is cool. I would love to see the Italy guy make the squad and be a backup, And then I'm also leaving off names like Tremaine Ankrum that can play. He's more of like a tackle and guard kind of guy, whereas somebody like Coleman Shelton is like a center and guard kind of guy. So there's some different versatility with some of these guys. At right tackle, the Rams have entered 2020 with Rob Havenstein and will, of course, enter 2021 with Rob Havenstein. I'm going to say that this is equal. Hard to think that Havenstein has reached the point where he will start to fall off. Rob has never been a superstar, but he has been a very strong starter for years for this team at right tackle. And as one of the 3 remaining St. Louis Rams on this roster, Havenstein, he still's got plenty of good years in him, and we'll have a couple of these St. Louis guys around for a little while, but there's at least one of them that I know you guys aren't complaining about, and that is good old Aaron Donald, and then also Johnny Hecker, who also played in St. Louis, and then it's Havenstein. Those are actually the only 3. So, but Havenstein's got plenty of years left, especially if he takes a page out of that Witt book and just keeps on playing forever. So that'd be cool stuff, huh? Let's head over to the defense. Defensive tackle Aaron Donald, 2021 is also going to be Aaron Donald. Verdict: it's Aaron Donald. I mean, it's a strong spot for the Rams. It will be as long as Aaron Donald exists. It will be a very strong position for the Rams. Defensive end, last year the Rams started Michael Brockers, who is now a Detroit Lion. In 2021, the Rams have Bobby Brown III, Ashawn Robinson, Eric Banks, Jonah Williams, Michael Hoke, Greg Gaines, John Daka, George Sylvanik, Ernest Brown IV, and Marquise Copeland. Definitely some depth here. I would say, like, at this time, I don't have anybody that's, like, rising to the top of that, except for, I'm probably a little bit biased with my Bobby Brown love because I'm a Texas A&M fan, and I watched that dude crush it in the SEC for the last few years. So I was stoked when we brought him in. Ashawn Robinson is getting some praise right now, so I'm excited to see what he can do. George Sylvanik is the Colorado kid, so I'm excited for him. Greg Gaines, he started pretty weak last year, but got better. And keep in mind, guys, that for the defensive line, we shuffle a lot, so the spots are a little like I said, like we had one defensive end, Michael Brockers. That's what I listed here. So there's going to be a lot of shuffling no matter who makes this roster. But verdict, I'm going to say it's a downgrade, actually. Michael Brockers, he played really well with Donald. So that's what I'm going to look for is who's going to play well with Aaron Donald, because Brockers was only here in 2020 because I think partially because of Aaron Donald. He, of course, he had originally had agreed upon a contract with the Baltimore Ravens last year, but failed his physical, and then he came back to the Rams, and AD was not happy that the Rams let him walk. So him coming back was a big thing, and it's because they play really well together. At nose tackle in 2020, the Rams started Greg Gaines, and I'll say the same names again. It's Brown, Robinson, Banks, Williams, Hogt, Gaines, Daka, Sylvanik, Brown, and Copeland. Same guys, because we'll see some shuffling there and some rotation there. But verdict, I'm going to say this is an improvement, especially from week 1. Because at the beginning of the season last year, Gaines was getting straight up bullied on that defensive line. So I think no matter what, even if it was Gaines to be the starter, I think it's an improvement because he started the season so weak last year. And he did get better as the season progressed, but I think we got some good guys here. Hogt is a guy that gets a lot of talk here. Robinson's getting talked about. Jonah Williams is getting talked about. So, I mean, we've got some guys on this defensive line. I like our depth there for sure. Let's go inside linebacker. In 2020, the Rams really had a three-way rotation with Micah Kiser, Kenny Young, and Troy Reeder. Those guys are all returning this year, but we also have, of course, Traven Howard, Justin Hollins, Ernest Jones, Derek Moncrief, and Christian Roseboom. Roseboom, by the way, I know I said that Jordan Fuller has the coolest hair on this team. It's definitely Roseboom. I mean, who am I kidding here? All right, front office best hair is Les Snead. On-field best hair, Christian Roseboom, linebacker. Verdict here, I'm going to say that this is an improvement. I think this spot just gets better with another season of experience, and all of these guys from a year ago with the addition of Ernest Jones, who's been, green dotting in some practices and stuff like that, calling some stuff out, and I think that I think that this is an improvement. You get all those guys with an extra season under their belts, and now you also get a guy that the coaches are clearly trusting to call some plays, so that's definitely not a negative aspect of the defensive side of the football here. At outside linebacker, we go to the 2020 season where the Rams started. It was Leonard Floyd and Samson Ebukam, but also Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo was there. Terrell Lewis when he wasn't, just dealing with his injuries and stuff like that. And then Ja'Kai Polite as well. And Polite, I liked out of college a lot. Then he was, with the Jets and all that stuff. He came over to us. He's kind of had I don't want to say worse, but it is worse career than I expected him to have. But another year of experience, that's not a bad thing. In 2021, the Rams entered the season. Samson Ebukam is now a 49er, so he's not around anymore. But the Rams still do have Leonard Floyd, Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo, Terrell Lewis, Justin Lawler, Chris Garrett, and Max Roberts. Max Roberts is a UDFA. Chris Garrett was our last pick of the draft. And then Terrell Lewis, we know from last year. Justin Lawler's kind of been around a little bit. But the verdict here, I'm going to say, is equal. Ebukam becomes a division rival. And that sucks. But he definitely had a really high motor. But he was still crafting his technique while he was with the Rams. So if he can nail that, the kid's going to be really good. But the motor's there. He was still crafting his techniques. So he could have been a lot better, and maybe he will get a lot better. I would hope not now, because now he's a 49er. So I want Matthew Stafford to not hit the ground once this year. That'd be sweet. But if it happens, it happens. But ultimately, the position opposite of Floyd is really up in the air. I don't know who's exactly going to win this. I would expect Obo to really have some playing time, especially early in the season. But I fully expect a solid rotation here. Chris Garrett might be able to squeeze in there. Lawler, I think, is now, if he doesn't do it this year, if he doesn't really become a guy this year, then it's probably time to just move on. But then Terrell Lewis, if that guy can stay healthy, that dude's a monster. So I'm looking for that stuff, man. And this preseason will be very telling. I don't expect Leonard Floyd to play, so we'll get some good position battles to watch all throughout preseason for sure. And that's exactly what I can't wait for preseason for. I'm super pumped for it, and it's going to be an awesome time. Next year, we'll look at corner. In 2020, the Rams entered the season with Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, Troy Hill, David Long Jr. Those were really the guys here. In 2021, the Rams entered the season with Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, David Long Jr., Robert Rochelle, Dante Dion, Kareem Orr, Diane Lake, and Bronte Harris. So, of course, a little bit more depth there. Of course, the recent guys, Diane Lake coming in. We talked about him a couple episodes ago. Kareem Orr coming in, Bronte Harris, Robert Rochelle, who I feel really good about, guys. I really do. I feel like Robert Rochelle might be a guy. Like, he might be somebody by the end of the season we're like, holy crap, we nailed that pick. That's awesome. And Dante Dion, man, I think that he is such a positive locker room presence that I think he should stick around just for that. I'm not trying to dog his play in it by any means or anything. I haven't really seen too much of him, but his personality, I think, is electric, and I think that that's a very beneficial thing in this locker room, especially when you got guys like Jalen Ramsey and stuff like that who are out here having a good time, having fun out here. So Dante Dion brings that, man, and I love it. I think it's awesome. The verdict here, I'm going to say ultimately that this is equal. It would be really difficult to top what the Rams secondary as a whole did last year. That would be like a very high bar to clear. Troy Hill, he did lead the league in defensive touchdowns a season ago. He just seemed to have a knack for it last year. It just seemed to be in the right spot, the right time. That one against the Cardinals, where it just like he picked it off, and it was like, "There's no way this is going all the way back." It just kept going. Like, I don't know, it was wild to watch. But he did lead the league in defensive touchdowns. But, word on the street is that Robert Rochelle's pretty dang good, and this guy could have a monster career. This could be the start. He could be entering into a pretty monster career. And if Robert Rochelle can be that guy who the Rams, their weird little algorithm stuff is putting Robert Rochelle into the conversation with Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey, and Derwin James. And then it's Robert Rochelle. Like, those four have fallen under a certain category for the Rams analytics. So if that can happen, if that can be something that manifests in the Rams with Rochelle and Ramsey, that could be a pretty deadly duo, which would be really fun to watch. And if these safeties that we'll get to here in a second, if they can keep improving too, I'm liking this defense. I think it's going to be another fun season to watch, this Rams defense. Speaking of safeties, last year, the Rams entered the year with John Johnson, Taylor Rapp, Terrell Burgess, Jordan Fuller, and Nick Scott. Some of those guys are still around. Of course, John Johnson is not. John Johnson is now a Cleveland Brown with Troy Hill. In 2021, though, this year, the Rams will enter with Jordan Fuller, Terrell Burgess, Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott, Paris Ford, Jake Jervis, Juju Hughes, and Troy Warner. Some of these guys, of course, I don't expect all of these guys to make the roster. That's a bunch of safeties that you don't necessarily need, but Jordan Fuller, Terrell Burgess, I feel good about those guys being the starters, and then Taylor Rapp and Nick Scott coming in to kind of spell a little bit. And Juju Hughes and Jake Jervis, I think that those guys definitely have the potential to fight for a roster spot. Juju Hughes, I like. Jake Jervis, I like. Troy Warner, I don't really know a lot about him. And Paris Ford, he's a guy that I've kind of penciled in as a potential impact guy for a UDFA that might be able to make this roster, but it's going to be tough because Fuller and Burgess are their players, and that, Rapp is that he's getting some comments that saying, talking about that he's doing a pretty good job, but I didn't see that improvement year 1 to year 2. So hopefully we can see that year 2 to year 3, we can see that upgrade there. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say it's a downgrade. John Johnson's one of the better safeties in the NFL. And that's going to be very difficult to replace. Fuller and Burgess, they entered their second season, and Fuller improved a lot over the course of last season. As the year went on, he just got better and better and better. But I think we'll be okay here, but let's not pretend like losing John Johnson isn't kind of a big deal. That guy's really good at football, all right? So let's not pretend like that's not a big one. Let's go to the kicker spot here. In 2020, the Rams started a draft pick, Samuel Sloman. And it didn't work out very well. And then the Rams went through a little bit of a transitional period and then landed on Matt Gay, who will enter this year as the Rams kicker. I'm going to say this is an improvement. Sloman did a bad job. He was not very good. And Gay played great wrapping up the end of the season. Only missed like a couple in that last final stretch there. And yeah, you don't want to miss any, but it's going to happen. And it's just all about timing of when you miss them. But I think that going from Sloman to Gay this year, I think that that's definitely an improvement. At punter, Johnny Hekker last year, Johnny Hekker this year. But we also have Corey Bojorquez and Brandon Wright on the roster right now. This Rams punter group is absolutely deep, man. The deepest punter group in the NFL. Tell Pat McAfee. I think I did on Twitter, actually. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is equal. The Heck will be back. It's nice to see a small competition for him, though. Competition is what I call it here, because we know that we feel pretty good that he's going to be the guy again. But it's good to keep him on his toes, especially because last year was technically his worst statistical year, his lowest averages, all that stuff. So it's good to get him out there and competing a little bit. I also want to see more fakes. All right, Joe D. We need to bring back the fakes because last year it was a real bummer not seeing any of them. So Johnny Hekker, man, he's got the arm. Let's let him use it. All right, his right arm and his right leg are awesome. I mean, we utilize both of those, and we'll do all right. And at the long snapper spot, last year the Rams entered with Jake McQuaid, and he's now a Dallas Cowboy. So Rams right now have a battle between Steven Wirtel and Matthew Orzech. The verdict here, I'm going to say this is a downgrade because both of these guys I think will be they can be solid starters in that spot. They can come in that role and be fine. But let's not pretend like McQuaid was not an absolute stud at the long snapper spot. All right, because this is what I was trying to think of, and I spent a decent amount of time trying to think of this. When was the last time, as Rams fans, I know I watch every single snap, including preseason, all that stuff. I watch every press conference, snap, all that. When was the last time you guys saw a bad snap? On a field goal or a punt, when was the last time we saw a snap that you're like, what the heck was that? None of the time I can think of where it's like, with Hekker reaching down to his feet to get the ball on a punt, or he's the one holding it. They seem to be right there. They were just boom, boom, boom every time. I don't remember. I could not recall. I'm asking you guys. Can you guys think of any time that the Rams long snapper, or like we had a kicking situation where the snap was bad? Because I could not. LA Rams fans, the best kind of person in the world. My favorite kind of person in the world. Thank you guys for making it all the way to the end of the video. I do appreciate you guys. If you guys want to head over here, that's going to be where you subscribe if you have not already. And if you liked this clip, you'll probably love the entire podcast. I promise. There's actually a giveaway on it too, so make sure you guys check it out. That'll be on this side. Peace. Go Rams.